It's live, it's live, it's live. I started the recording. I said it's live now, it's live now.
This is the
Your Excellencies, Defense Attaché Chairperson, members of faculty, Army War College Nigeria, principal staff officers, represent, distinguished participants of Street Army War College, good morning and welcome. Anyone now, special guest of honor, who will be joining us in here. I bring your indulgence, please switch off your phones as we get set to receive special guest of honor. Already with us, the chief of army staff is already outside to receive the special guest of honor and guest lecturer for this graduation lecture. Before then, I bring by indulgence to all please switch off our phones as we get set to receive guest lecturer and chief of army staff.
Give me the head, give me the head, the head.
For our cameraman, please take the indulgence to adopt the permanent position. We are constrained for space in these hallowed chambers. See why we are trying to please, with respect of the president, please constrain yourselves to a position so that we don't obstruct the view and thereby distract the attention of all distinguished guests who are here seated. Cameramen, please adopt a position and remain at your adopted position until the end of the proceedings. Just before the Chief of Army Staff comes to special guest of honor, allow me to recognize the Chief of Policy and Plans Army, Lieutenant General Adosho, who already gets seated with us. Welcome. Thank you for placing this occasion for very good presence. Also amongst us are principal staff officers from Army headquarters, and indeed the services headquarters, all together. You're all individually welcome and appreciate your presence with us. Let me also please respectfully remind us that as a matter of reference, the band fanfare will allow the entry of the chief of army staff with the guest of honor and to hear the band fanfare. I respectfully request that all please rise to receive His Excellency Ambassador Mohammed Ibn Chambers, who will be brought in, led into these chambers by the Chief of Army Staff, and to come and work on it. That is just for our information, please. The band will be allowed arrival into this hall. So please, I will hear the fanfare from the band. Please, let's please rise.
He did like that.
First ready.
It is true.
What are you doing? What's the progress? So now somebody has to sit down and leave.
Come sit down there. The thing is live now. It's live now.
Do the necessary things. Yes. Do the necessary things.
Let me also inform us that this event is being transmitted live on the Nigerian Television Authority and Channels Television. It is also being streamed live and also radio. Also, it is live Facebook. As reaching the food, it's a special guest of honor. It's about to now Portugal. We are request and we all get set to receive the hall. Let me remind us once again to please switch off our phones for the best, have them on silent mode in order not to obstruct proceedings at this graduation lecture. Excellency, the special guest of honor, who are part of that, to receive military courses. I presume these are members of this delegation. It is special to do right to have them settled. Distinguished guests, Mr. Viewers, cameramen, let me allow you to establish congratulations. This will be the short review of the Chief of Army Staff and Special Guest. Cameraman, please. The special guest of honor, Your Excellency, Ambassador Mohammed Ibn Chambers, the United Nations Special Representative to the Secretary General to West Africa and Sahel, the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tukur Yusuf Buratai, Nigerian Army Medal, Order of Military Merit, Brazil, amongst other numerous medals, honors, and awards. Your Excellency, Ambassador Francois Faure, Special Representative of the Secretary General to the United Nations for Central Africa. Your Excellency, Ambassador Angel Dusada, Special Representative of the European Union for the Sahel and the Chad region. Representative of the Chief of Naval Staff, Rear Admiral I.T. Olaya. Representative of the Chief of Air Staff, Air Commodore RC-14. Representative of Chairman Senate Committee of the Army, Mr. Bilal Tijani Kumalia. Your Excellency, Ambassador Dr. Abdel Fattah Musa, the Director for West Africa, the Department of Political and Peace Building Affairs, United Nations Headquarters. Political advisors in armies here present, in particular Ms. Marilyn Nzogu from the United Nations Office for Central Africa, Ms. Elena Gomez from the European Union, Mr. James Aji from the United Nations Office for West Africa, Ms. Falmata Liman from the United Nations Office for West Africa and the Sahel, Ms. Angelita Mendy, the Public Information Advisor, United Nations Office for West Africa and the Sahel, Mr. Zebulon Tapa, Peace and Development Advisor, Office of the United Nations Resident Coordinator in Nigeria, the Chief of Policy and Plans Army, Lieutenant General Elu Adeosun, the Commandant, Army War College Nigeria, Major General C. Ofuchi, the Commandant, National Defense College, ably represented by the Deputy Commandant, Brigadier General ADR2, other principal staff officers from Defense Services Headquarters, directors and deputy directors from Defense and Services Headquarters, senior officers, both serving and retired, members of faculty, Army War College Nigeria, participants of Army War College Nigeria Course 3 2019, distinguished invited guests, gentlemen of the press, ladies and gentlemen. I am Major I.O. Iweha, Master of Ceremony, Graduation Lecture, Army War College Course 3 2019. It is my pleasure to specially welcome you all to the hallowed chambers of the T.Y. Buratai Hall, Army War College Nigeria. Please allow me a moment to acquaint you with the process this event will take. Shortly, the Commandant of Army War College Nigeria will deliver his welcome remarks. This will be followed by the introduction of the guest lecturer to be taken by Colonel N.I. Abilai. Thereafter, the guest lecturer will take his place at the lantern to my right and deliver the graduation lecture. I will return thereafter to acquaint you with further details of this event. Until then, please welcome with me the Commandant, Army War College Nigeria, Major General Charles Ofoche, to deliver the welcome address. Commandant, sir.
Our special guest of honor, Your Excellency Ambassador Mohammed Ibn Chambers, Chief of Army Staff, Your Excellency Sir President, senior officers, and invited guests. It is, for us in the college, a big delight to host you at the Army War College. I am extremely delighted to welcome you to this esteemed Hallowed Chamber, Your Excellency, Mohammed Ibn Chambers, Chief Army Staff, Representative Siwaj Watai, special guests and friends of the college to this auspicious occasion of the graduation lecture of the Army War College Nigeria of 3/2019. Indeed, we are very privileged to have this array of seasoned and highly respected audience to add color to this year's event. The graduation lecture is a major event of the college and a key activity of the graduation week of workers. It seemed like yesterday when Lieutenant General Sia Yobiako retired, delivered the inaugural address at this hall, and 8 months has gone past so quickly. And we are now in the graduation week. The course comprised of 66 participants in the rank of colonels and lieutenant colonels of the Nigerian Army and equivalent of other sister services. Others include senior officers from Nigerian Police, Federal Safety Corps, Civil Defense, and the EFCC. There are also 2 allied military officers from Cameroon and the Republic of Congo. It is important to note that within the past 3 weeks, our distinguished participants have been exposed to 8 modules comprising Foundation, International Security and Organizational Defense, Intelligence Cooperation. Other modules include Theories of War and Strategy, Leadership, Military History, Operational Art and Campaigning, and lastly, Peace Support Operations. The knowledge gained during this course is essentially geared towards enhancing the capacities of the officers to function effectively to address emerging security threats. This year's graduation lecture is titled Emerging Non-Traditional Threats in the Sahel, Implication for National Security. The topic was carefully selected to draw our attention to the several factors that have exacerbated the vulnerabilities of the Sahel region and have created the conditions for new security threats. The vast ungoverned spaces, weak security institutions, socio-political and economic imbalance, as well as past economic opportunities, are all factors contributing to the entrenchment of extremism and other forms of transnational crimes in the Sahel. The region is increasingly becoming a safe haven for international terrorist organizations. The effect of the activities of these terrorist organizations is currently being felt in Nigeria with the growing influence of the Islamic State for West Africa province, ISWAP, in the northeast region of the country, with their consequences to national security. It is in recognition of the importance of this topic that the college sought the consent of the Chief of Army Staff to invite our esteemed guest speaker, His Excellency Mohammed Ibn Chambers, the United Nations Special Representative of the Secretary General of West Africa and Sahel, to share his thoughts with us. Our guest speaker is a seasoned career diplomat and comes with vast experience and knowledge in this field. It is my belief that our distinguished participants and indeed the college will benefit immensely from this opportunity. I therefore urge the participants to remain very attentive in order to derive maximum benefits from this lecture. Finally, permit me to once again seize the opportunity to welcome everyone to 2019 Graduation Week of the Army War Corps Nigeria. Thank you for honoring our invitation, and welcome to the Army War College.
Can we please appreciate the Commandant for General round of applause? Allow me to also remind us that this program is being televised tonight on Nigerian Television Authority, Channels Television, and on Armed Forces Radio. May I now invite NIR Live to present the resume of our special guest of honor, Nigeria Staff. invite the special guest of honor to deliver his remarks. Our esteemed and most revered guest lecturer, the Chief of Army Staff, and the founding chairman, Army War College, Nigeria Governing Board, Lieutenant General T.Y. Buratai, Your Excellencies, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, permit me to rest on the already established protocol. A very good morning to you all and a pleasant welcome to T.Y. Buratai Lecture Hall, the venue for the Army War College Nigeria Graduation Lecture for Course 3, 2019. I am Colonel N.I. Abdullahi, the sponsor participant, and I'm highly honored to introduce the Amir guest lecturer for this auspicious occasion. We are indeed privileged to have in our midst today a consummate professional and a diplomat for excellence in the person of His Excellency, Dr. Mohammed Ibn Chambers, Doctor of Philosophy, to deliver this all-important lecture entitled Emerging Non-Traditional Threats in the Sahel, Implications for National Security. But before I invite the guest lecturer, permit me to give an abridged version of his curriculum vitae. Dr. Mohammed Ibn Chambers was born on the 7th of December 1950 at Bimbilla District, Northern Region of Ghana. He is a lawyer, an astute politician, an educationist, and an international public servant of global repute. Our erudite guest lecturer had his early education at the Ifan School, Cape Coast, and Government Secondary School, now Tamale Secondary School, Ghana. He earned his bachelor's degree in political science from University of Ghana, Legon, in 1973, and proceeded to obtain his master's as well as doctorate degrees from the Cornell University, in the state of New York, in 1977 and 1980, respectively. He equally got his law degree from the Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland, Ohio, in the United States. During his illustrious career, spanning well over 3 decades now, our resource person practiced law in the United States, both at the Legal Aid Society of Cleveland and the Cleveland, Ohio Law Office of Forbes, before he later returned to Ghana as a school administrator. Dr. Chambers entered government in 1987 as Deputy Foreign Secretary of Ghana, during this period, he was a member of the Head of State Summit delegation to the United States, China, United Kingdom, France, Malaysia, Nigeria, and Zimbabwe. He equally led Ghana's delegation to the United Nations General Assembly, ministerial meetings of the Organization of African Unity, the Economic State of West African States, the Non-Aligned Movement, and the Commonwealth of Nations. As part of his services to humanity, Dr. Chambers was the mediator of the first Liberian Civil War in the 1990s and later the Ivorian Civil War in the early 2000s. He served as Member of Parliament representing his birth district of Bimbilla from 1993 to 1996, first as Deputy Speaker and later Deputy Foreign Minister, amongst other appointments he had. He was the Ghana's Deputy Minister of Education in charge of tertiary education from 1997 to 2000 and successfully returned to the Parliament in that same year, 2000. Our distinguished guest lecturer was the Executive Secretary of ECOWAS in 2002 and was the first President of the ECOWAS Commission and served from 2007 to 2010. He He was Secretary General of the African, Caribbean, and Pacific Group of States between 2010 and 2013. He was the Joint Special Representative for the Darfur and head of the United Nations African Union High Grade Peacekeeping Mission in Darfur, where he took over from our very own Ambassador Ibrahim Bembari from 2012 to 2014. Presently, His Excellency sits as the United Nations Special Representative of the Secretary General for West Africa and the Sahel, and the head of the United Nations Office for West Africa and the Sahel. Dr. Chambers is a proud husband and a father who dedicated most of his life to the service of peace. The Chief of Army Staff, sir, Your Excellencies, Commandant and Senior Officers, ladies and gentlemen, please join me with an Army War College round of applause as I humbly and most respectfully invite His Excellency to the podium to deliver his lecture. The guest lecturer.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction and for the very warm Army War College. MC has established a very elaborate protocol which I will stand on. Permit me to acknowledge the presence, of course, of a very good friend, my brother, the Army Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Buratai, who I consider a real privilege to be able to call my brother. Thank you, Sir. I also want to acknowledge my very good friends who are accompanying me to this lecture, the Special Representative of UN Secretary General for Central Africa, former Foreign Minister, former Prime Minister of Guinea, His Excellency Hussein Fall, and the Special Representative of the EU to the Sahel and the Chad, these countries, Ambassador Angel Busada, who, when I was here at ECOWAS, was at that time the Ambassador of Spain to Nigeria. The Commandant, very senior officers here, senior officers, graduating participants, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. As someone who shares a common cause with this renowned institution, the Nigerian Armed Forces, I'm particularly pleased and I feel singularly honored to have been invited to address you at this important graduation event. Hearty congratulations to all the graduating participants. Today, we recognize your hard work and efforts made throughout the duration of your stay at the Army War College. I can imagine it is a moment of immense joy and achievement for you, your loved ones, and this institution, which has a track record of producing the finest in Nigeria, in our sub-region, and the continent. We're therefore delighted to join you in celebrating this notable achievement. However, as we celebrate the end of this phase, we welcome you to the beginning of the next phase, which is to a region facing serious existential threats to individuals and nation states. A region that is not only yearning for your expertise to address these threats, but needs you more than ever before. A region whose future will depend on the skill sets you have acquired at this college and your willingness to commit yourselves for the greater good, the promotion of peace and security. Every little effort counts. If you ever question the impact of your contribution in addressing the security threats before us, be reminded of the African proverb. It says, and I quote, "If you think you're too small to make a difference, then you haven't spent the night with the mosquito." Permit me to recognize the sterling contributions of the War College, the Center of Excellence for Strategic Peace Support Operations Training in West Africa and New York. The college has produced the core of the leadership of several peacemaking efforts, and the multinational composition of students of this great institution speaks volumes to the dedication and contribution of the Nigerian Armed Forces in defense cooperation through strategic level training. It is therefore my duty and honor on behalf of the United Nations to acknowledge, commend, and congratulate the visionary leadership of the Chief of Army Staff and the Army War College as a positive force multiplier in the search for global peace and security. The real impact of the War College is visible in the Nigerian Armed Forces. I would like to pay a debt of gratitude to the Nigerian Armed Forces that have demonstrated and continue to demonstrate professionalism, commitment, and leadership in peacekeeping operations beginning as far back as the 1960s, through ECOMO in the 90s and the 2000s. The Nigerian Armed Forces still stand today tall in restoring peace in troubled states across our sub-region, including Guinea-Bissau and the Gambia, and indeed in other parts of the world, under the umbrella of ECOWAS, the African Union, and the United Nations. Following the collapse of the Soviet Union, we have seen the emergence of new threats that defy and extend beyond the state-based conception of security. These non-traditional threats manifest in various asymmetric forms and are mainly driven by non-state actors across several continents, at times in collusion with states or state actors. They take advantage of the products of transnational organized crime, including the proliferation of drugs, weapons, and technology, to unleash both physical, that's armed attacks, and non-physical, cyber insecurity. In Africa, these threats have so far been felt in predominantly ungoverned and underdeveloped spaces, such as the current dynamics in the Sahel. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, before I delve into the nature and scope of emerging non-traditional threats in the Sahel and implications for national security, I would like to stress on the key message, which is that the holistic consideration and appropriate response to the non-traditional threat in the contemporary environment would determine the prospects for sustainable peace and development of communities, states, regions, and indeed our entire planet. My address is structured around the following 5 main areas. 1, the nature, causes, and characteristics of the non-traditional threats. 2, political geography and background of the Sahel region. 3, the manifestation of non-traditional security threats facing the Sahel region. 4, the role of regional and international bodies in preventing and countering these non-traditional threats. And 5, suggested way forward. conceptual issues in defining non-traditional threats. The diffusion of power occasioned by globalization, coupled with the versatility of communications and information technology, has reinforced the capacities of non-state actors who are the main perpetrators and beneficiaries of emerging non-traditional security threats. Their activities are often concealed and difficult to track due to the ease of movement through large expanses of geographical space, facilitated by their enhanced adaptability to the environment, their uncanny mastery of technology, their proximity to the population, and in some instances, their capacity to bring some form of governance to the ungoverned. The rapidly evolving characteristics of non-traditional threats has placed most states in reactionary mode, and in some cases resulted in a scramble for solutions. Addressing them will require an understanding of the threat environment and an appropriate framing of the problem appropriately in order to design comprehensive and sustainable solutions. Several security scholars and practitioners have attempted to define these emerging non-traditional security threats from different dimensions. Professor Meli Caballero Antonio, a professor of international relations and expert on non-traditional security studies, for instance, views non-traditional security threats as, and here I quote, challenges to the survival and well-being of peoples and states that arise primarily out of non-military sources, such as climate change, cross-border crimes, environmental degradation and resource depletion, infectious diseases, natural disasters, irregular migration, food shortages, people smuggling, drug smuggling, and other forms of traditional crime, transnational crime, other forms of transnational crime. Another academic, Subhraik Chaudhary, a security expert and member of the Indian National Security Board, provided additional structure to the definition of non-traditional threats by identifying 6 broad branches of non-traditional security threats, namely international terrorism, transnational organized crime, environmental security, illegal migration, energy security, and human security. These threats all have implications for national security. In addition to the discourse within the academia, practitioners and institutions have also attempted to frame the discussion in a more contextual form, while highlighting the relation to peace and security. The United Nations, for instance, has been approaching the discourse on non-traditional threats by identifying some of its manifestations and their linkages to international peace and security. The surge in violent extremism, coupled with its increased convergence with organized crime and the effects of climate change, has aggravated conflicts over scarce land and water, and has been a trigger for large-scale migration, the trafficking of people, the sale of arms, illicit drugs, and narcotics, which constitute some of the major non-traditional security threats across contiguous states, including within the Sahel Belt, the Gulf of Guinea, and across the Mediterranean Sea into Europe. Such complex and multi-layered threats require multidisciplinary responses. The manifestation of these threats in the Sahel has been provoked by several factors including inter alia, the spillover effects of the Libyan conflict, governance deficits in large areas of the Sahel, which over time had little or no state presence, poverty and unemployment of youth, and other social, cultural, political considerations. The affiliation of Boko Haram with such groups has a huge influence on their capabilities, and that affects the security dynamics in Nigeria and other countries. The Libyan conflict is often cited as a main catalyst to the unfolding situation in the Sahel. A large cache of arms, which were held in the custody of groups that fought alongside forces loyal to the late Muammar Gaddafi, were reported to have been found or to have found their way into ungoverned spaces in the Libyan desert and subsequently into the Sahel. To date, the Sahel region remains at the epicenter and continues to face particularly acute non-traditional security challenges. Insurgencies across parts of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger are gradually expanding, while Nigeria, Cameroon, Chad, and Niger collectively, within the framework of the multinational joint task force, continue to battle various actors of violence in northeast of Nigeria and across the Lake Chad basin, as well as criminal gangs across much of the northern Nigeria and Lake Chad catchment area. Jihadists and other extremist groups are exploiting political conflicts and social fusions to very devastating effects, and in the process, destroying local security and dispute resolution systems, thus undermining social cohesion and national unity. In response, Sahelian states have engaged in military cooperation supported by some Western allies to deal with this phenomenon. It is, however, becoming increasingly evident that non-traditional threats illustrate, defy, and exploit the limited reach of the state in the Sahel. For example, in addition to addressing the threats, the J-CENT Sahel Joint Force encompassing army units from 5 Sahelian states is also expected to deal with frustrations from local communities that could potentially undermine their efforts. The typology of the current threat to the environment demands holistic, multi-layers, and targeted responses, including at the local, regional, and international levels of stakeholders and interlocutors, including ECOWAS, the African Union, sub-regional bodies such as the Chad Basin Commission, the J-CENT Sahel Group, the Gulf of Guinea Commission, together with entities also such as the United Nations, the European Union, acting in unison with many other bilateral and multilateral entities. I'd also like to underline that the inherent characteristics of non-traditional security threats reveal a military and non-military dimension, and that they are transnational in scope, and neither totally domestic nor purely interstate, and are transmitted rapidly due to globalization as well as communication technology. It thus requires national leadership to look not only outward to cultivate international cooperation, but also inward to address latent, malignant political and socio-economic factors that may undermine peace and security. The distinguished Chief of Army Staff, Commandant, ladies and gentlemen, the non-traditional security threats in the Sahel would be better appreciated through the prism of its geographical setting, The nexus between politics and geography, demography, and economics shapes governance, national interests, and approach to foreign policy by the state within the Sahel belt. According to Tim Marshall, the author of the book, Prisoners of Geography, and I quote, "The land on which we live has always shaped us. It has shaped the wars, the power, politics, and social development of the peoples that now inhabit every part of the globe." End of quote. This can be said to be true for the Sahel. The Arabic word Sahel denotes a band of semi-arid land on the African continent that forms a transition zone between the Sahara Desert to the north and the Savannah to the south. It spreads across 5,400 kilometer belt of land from Africa's Atlantic coast to the Red Sea. However, for the purposes of its joint programmatic interventions under the United Nations Integrated Strategy for the Sahel, UNIS, the UN focuses only on the following 10 countries: Burkina Faso, Chad, Cameroon, Mali, Mauritania, Niger, Nigeria, Senegal, the Gambia, and Guinea. That's our scope in terms of when we deal with the Sahel. Generally, most regions of the world have experienced gradually declining rates of population growth. However, the Sahel's population is still growing rapidly because of high birth rates. This demographic growth, which is unevenly distributed over the landmass, has tremendous consequences for agricultural production, socio-economic development, as well as political inclusion and stability of many of the Sahelian countries. In total, these 10 countries that I enumerated span over 7 million square kilometers and are close to 135 million inhabitants. The age structure of the 10 countries of the Sahel are predominantly young, with a high rate of youth unemployment, which increases their susceptibility to social vices and violent extremism. Insurgencies across the Sahel tend to destabilize the political structure in some of the states and undermine local security and governance, especially in rural areas. These insurgencies cut across parts of Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, and by extension, contiguous states. Poor living conditions, social immobility, ongoing operations against religious extremism, and weak accountability mechanisms, as well as the absence of physical development, remain the most important political challenges for the Sahel. Significantly, the dismal performance of the economies of the countries in the Sahel, compounded by the effects of climate change, are cited also as key drivers for propagation of non-traditional security threats within the region. The World Bank's 2015 Doing Business report ranks these nations among the least business-friendly, due in large part to their history of political instability. Besides, the World Bank also lists half of the nations of the Sahel as fragile states, low-income countries with weak state capacities. The history of the Sahel contributes significantly to its experiences. Culture plays a significant role in the emerging non-traditional security threats in the region. Generally, culture involves values, ideas, and a higher intellectual, artistic realm. There are different ethnic groups in the Sahel where the Islamic religion is widely practiced. However, besides the religion, there are diversities of cultures as well, a collision of the French culture and Arabic civilizations and African civilizations. Many of these belief systems conflict with those of other indigenous tribes. Besides, there seems to be a clash between the semi-nomadic lifestyles of the Tamashek-speaking Tuareg and Fulani and other indigenous tribes like the Bambai, Dogon, Hausas, Mandi, Moor, Serakoli, Sunufo, Songye, Protect tribes, Odabe, Zagawas, among others. This manifests through migration of the nomads and their animals, which sometimes leads to disputes between farmers and peasants. Despite some improvements in democratic governance, as evidenced by the political transitions being witnessed in the region in recent years, and the regularity of electoral processes, the Sahel region continues to grapple with challenges such as civil strife, limited state presence in some areas, weak institutional capacity, amid increasing demand for services by the population, popular frustrations linked to the natural resource management, among many more. In fact, ensuring a national spread of state presence and good governance constitute the Achilles heel for many countries in the Sahel. It should, however, be highlighted that the once autocratic regimes witnessed in the region deepened ethnic cleavages, excluded communities from the governance processes, and created entrenched frustrations which persist today and are being exploited by violent extremists in spite of the increasing democratization in the area. In fact, the threat we face in the Sahel could be linked to the proverbial rain which does not recognize anyone as a friend and drenches all equally. Violent extremism is a persistent and evolving global menace, as no country is immune from its shocks and consequences. It is arguably the most dominant and potent current threat ravaging the Sahel region. Groups such as Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, ACMI, Islamic State West Africa, Province Iswap, Boko Haram, and Islamic State in the Greater Sahel, ISGS, have been and remain the main actors in perpetrating widespread violence and spreading terror. The roots of the deep-seated instability in the region can be largely traced as far back as the return in the 80s of jihadists to North Africa from Afghanistan and their role in the Algerian Civil War between the state and the Islamic Salvation Front, which led to the latter forming the Islamist network, which later morphed into the Salafist group for preaching and combat, a predecessor of ACMI. As a result of anti-Islamic operations from 2005-2006 in Algeria, the group fractionalized and spread over a large area of the Sahel and was engaged in local banditry and smuggling networks. Boko Haram was allied with this group until the emergence of ISIS. The movement of oneness and jihad in West Africa, Mujahid, is also an offshoot of ACMI in the region. This group operated in Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, employing violent extremism and other means of coercion to pressure the government and population in pursuit of their military and strategic objectives. The invasion of Libya in 2011 has hemorrhaged jihadist groups alongside Movement National de Libération d'Azawad, MNLA, into northern Mali, where they set camp and served as a force multiplier across the Sahel. The threat of violent extremism to human, state, and Sahelian region security is real, as it is driving a humanitarian crisis of alarming proportions. Violent extremists and criminal armed groups are operating with impunity across large areas across Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, almost unhindered. A relentless and violent southwest thrust of jihadist movement should sound the clarion call to us all that these movements, these groups, are slowly but methodically and systematically attempting to realize the vision of Al-Qaeda and Islamic State for a greater Islamic State engulfing vast territories of tropical Africa. The tactics of jihadist groups aim to radicalize and direct youth agencies, create disaffection among local and peripheral communities with state authority by demonstrating statements and convincing communities through initial ad hoc social intervention activities that the jihadists are best positioned to protect, which is of course false. These persistent attacks are increasingly adopting tactics along community lines, in addition to attacks against security personnel and installations. Despite scaled-up national efforts, the level of insecurity continues to rise in Nigeria, Cameroon, Mali, Burkina Faso, while a sharp increase has been recorded particularly in Niger and Burkina Faso lately. Between October and November this year alone, at least 80 Malian troops have been killed by militants and the Islamic State in Greater Sahel. And in Burkina Faso, these attacks are almost a daily phenomenon now. In Mali, and increasingly Niger and Burkina Faso, tactics including radio-controlled IEDs, booby-trapped vehicles bearing false logos of national security forces and international organizations are increasingly being deployed. In the past 2 months alone, about 350 security and defense forces members and 250 civilians have been killed in direct attacks. 200,000 people displaced, 160,000 denied of health care, and another 200,000 unable to access education across the Sahel region. This brings the total number of forced displacements to 3.7 million, that is 2.8 million IDPs and 960,000 refugees, a 20% increase over 2018. In Burkina Faso, the number of IDPs shot from actually around 40,000-50,000 in January this year to the current 486,000 in October, November, making it one of the fastest growing humanitarian crises in Africa this year. The phenomenon is so pervasive that latent ethnic animosities have been exploited, leading to ethnic violence in Mali and Burkina Faso, as well as attacks on places of prayer and worship. Violent extremism and terrorism are linked to transnational organized crime and illicit trafficking of drugs and smuggling, which provide bigger sources of income and resources, as well as power and control over trafficking routes and safe havens in the Sahel. The question often asked many by the affected communities is, why has the region and the international community not been able to prevent and counter violent extremism and terrorism? The response to this question could be as varied as the different interests at play in the Sahel. While a compelling case can be made for the necessity of a military response and in support of the efforts being made by the G5 Sahel and other forces, some analysts have at the same time pointed to the limitations in the force and the insufficiency of an approach that leans heavily on a military option and or solution. The armed forces of Sahel countries face challenges in prosecuting this type of asymmetric warfare. The challenge is that the threats evolve and adapt faster than the ability of various prevention and combat measures put out there. In a sense, the non-traditional and flexible nature of the threat cannot be addressed by traditional and less dynamic approaches. It must be recalled that this type of warfare remains a challenge for even the best militaries in the world. As we forge ahead with different strategies to address this goal, we should be guided by the words of former United Nations Secretary General Mr. Ban Ki-moon, who during his address to the Security Council on 24 September 2014 said, and I quote, missiles may kill terrorists, but good governance kills terrorism. Free and independent societies free from suffering, oppression, and occupation, that is what kills terrorism. End of quote. The Sahel and Northwest Africa have been convenient locations for armed trafficking since the 1990s. And since the early 2000s, narcotic trafficking, especially by cocaine and cannabis resin, has risen. The region is widely touted as a global hub for narcotic trafficking that encompasses links to Latin America, the Caribbean, Sub-Saharan Africa, and Europe, a huge source of financing of terrorism. Organized criminal groups, which often incorporate networks of underpaid and corrupt government officials and security personnel, have exploited the growing instability to expand their operations, assisted by the diffusion of Libyan weapons into the region. The proliferation of small arms and light weapons remains a significant non-traditional threat in the Sahel region. While they may not necessarily cause conflict, they embolden resistance to the peaceful resolution of conflict, increase the lethality, and exacerbate conflicts, thus negatively impacting on national security before, during, and after the conflict. According to recent statistics by the Armed Survey Group, there are more than 1 billion, in fact, 1,013 million firearms in circulation worldwide, and over 100 million of these are in Africa, of which almost 30 million are in Sub-Saharan Africa. The October 2011 fall of Gaddafi and the subsequent breakdown of law and order in Libya have been major contributors to the instability plaguing large swaths of the Sahel region. In particular, the flow of weapons from looted Libyan military stockpiles into the surrounding countries has galvanized existing political opposition, separatist movements, and transnational militant groups, and compounded the porosity, which is compounded by the porosity of borders of most countries in the region. Human trafficking has also been a major non-traditional threat in most of the countries in the Sahel. Human trafficking appears to have replaced slave trade and other forms and has become rampant with the dawn of the new millennium. The International Labour Organization has said that there are 40.3 million victims of human trafficking globally in a 150 billion industry. The current harsh economic realities and globalization undoubtedly heighten the spate of human trafficking in countries within the Sahel and Africa in general. This has dire consequences for the national security of states in the Sahel. In the words of United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres, as populations continue to increase and the climate continues to deteriorate, and as people flock in ever-increasing numbers to large underdeveloped cities, the threat of multiple protracted mega emergencies has become reality. climate change and its impact have dominated the international policy agenda recently. The climate of the Sahel has also been characterized by its extreme seasonal and decadal variability of rainfall. The Sahelian production system is heavily dependent on rainfall. Food crop production is mostly rain-fed and livestock rearing transhumant. The effect of these climate change have led to rapid desert encroachment, which has forced many to migrate, thus creating tensions and conflicts, as illustrated by the Farmer-Era conflict. Many of the Sahel states are present on the chart of extreme risk countries on the Climate Change Vulnerability Index. Revolution in communication and information technology provides opportunities for both governments and non-state actors to provide improved services to the citizen, but is being exploited by criminal groups and violent extremists to disseminate propaganda and increase their global reach. Despite checks and balances, the internet is still being used to facilitate the rapid transfer of funds, a key resource for these groups. The wider implication of the emerging threats in the Sahel is underdevelopment of the region. As the security situation deteriorates, as the security situation deteriorates, does so at the expense of meaningful development. Funds that could have been used for development in infrastructure, education, agriculture, and other endeavors are often channeled to tackling necessary security issues in the region by affected states. Conflict has displaced thousands of people across the Sahel. The threat in the Sahel also affects foreign direct investment, tourism, and the general decline in the exploration of its rich mineral resources across the region. Distinguished Chief of Army Staff, Commandant, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, real and sustainable security can only be realized upon the attainment of human security. The UN Millennium Report stressed on the importance of realizing certain fundamental freedoms. Freedom from need and the development agenda, and the freedom from fear, security agenda. While the Sustainable Development Goals offer the most comprehensive and viable option for sustainable peace, security, and development. Towards this end, the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres prioritizes conflict prevention, sustaining peace, and addressing the root causes of all forms of violence and insecurity, which grievously impact communities. He has repeatedly emphasized the need to prevent conflict by going back to basics, strengthening institutions, and building resilient societies. The complexity of the security threats facing the Sahel and its wider implications for regional and international peace and security has attracted a myriad of bilateral and multilateral partners to the region. Today, we're mindful of various strategies for the Sahel. Nonetheless, the United Nations, by developing its own strategy for the Sahel, the UNIS, United Nations Integrated Strategy for the Sahel, has been able to bridge the peace and development nexus, which is a condition sine qua non for sustainable peace and security in the region. UNIS brings together all UN entities presently working in the region and a common coordination mechanism to pool resources, maximize intervention, enhance programmatic synergy, and promote an effective delivery of services to affected communities at risk in line with national priorities. In addition, the support of the United Nations, the support that it is providing through the collaboration with GSM Sahel, MNJTF, both in terms of logistics and development of normative standards for the respect of international human rights and humanitarian law, as well as our joint political engagement, needs special emphasis. The African Union and the UN co-preside the ministerial platform on the Sahel. It brings together countries of the region and international partners such as the EU, the World Bank, African Development Bank, in an effort to pool and mobilize political will and to discuss some of the important measures needed to be taken to prevent and counter violent extremism. The UN is conscious of the fact that its intervention in the Sahel relies on concentric partnership and proper coordination, both internally and externally. In this regard, the United Nations Office for West Africa and the Sahel, UNOWAS, which I head, continues to undertake preventive diplomacy and good offices for prevention of conflict in concert with national, regional, and other international stakeholders. Indeed, our current visit, that of my colleague from Central Africa region, the EU, is exactly in line with this effort to build partnerships and to work strongly with national leadership to support national efforts. It is also worth noting the increasing assertiveness of African coalitions to take ownership of counter-terrorism efforts. Currently, Burkina Faso is considered as the new frontier for jihadist encroachment in West Africa. Should the Burkinabe front line be breached, no coastal country will be safe with the southward onslaught of violent extremism. Let us just imagine the mammoth efforts Nigeria is undertaking to degrade Boko Haram and Islamic State of West Africa province, ISWAP, to deprive them of control of territory and reduce them to opportunistic and random tactics. A southward incursion of the Sahelian jihadist movement would be expanding their presence and their networking and really pose even greater challenges to the entire Sahel and West African regions. For this reason, Nigeria should see the outcome of the Accra Initiative and the ECOWAS Ouagadougou Summit as opportunities to capitalize and leverage its leadership role in the entire region in the fight against violent extremism and terrorism. Meanwhile, the G5 Sahel countries have developed a priority investment plan to include the programmatic response in complement to the operations of the G5 Sahel force. Similarly, the LCDC has developed a Lake Chad stabilization plan that seeks to bring development at community levels. And what is innovative about it is the involvement of governments at the various state and provincial levels to come out with strategies that tackle root causes of violent extremism and terrorism. ECOWAS is in the process of developing a plan of action as directed by the Ouagadougou Summit, which also go in the same direction. At the extraordinary summit of states and government of ECOWAS on terrorism, Burkina Faso on 14 September, member states inter alia pledged a total of $1 billion to support ECOWAS' comprehensive framework for preventing and countering violent extremism and terrorism in the region, and indicated their readiness to deploy the ECOWAS standby force to address its threat. Beyond these efforts, many other international, multilateral, and bilateral initiatives are underway in the Sahel, but significant challenges remain. Addressing the myriad of non-traditional threats in the Sahel will require interventions that will surgically address the structural deficiencies and operational gaps that constitute some of the main impediments and or challenges to our collective engagement in the region. Our approaches must be holistic, sufficient, and flexible enough to meet the ever-evolving situation. First, the multiplicity of actors and interventions in the Sahel, which to a large extent has been instrumental in mobilizing the requisite resources and political will, needs to address these threats and call for proper coordination. Working together will require an effective coordination mechanism that will be able to increase the synergies to operate in such a complex environment and to avoid duplication of efforts while ensuring that interventions align with national and regional priorities and are accepted by the population. Second, addressing the developmental and economic challenges will be key to sustainably addressing the threats to peace and security in the region. This will entail, among others, developing and implementing policies and strategies that will revitalize the economy of the concerned states or provinces, improve macroeconomic outputs, which will translate into concrete and significant changes in the lives of the populations. It is worth noting that the Sahel nations are faced with a social infrastructure deficit, growing unemployment, poor services, and poverty. Some of these factors, which also exist in the northeast of Nigeria, account for the highest rate of poverty in the countries, which is ranging between 5.4% and as high as 72.2% in some of the Sahel countries. Third, rapid population growth has been identified by some Sahel observers as a challenge when combined with the worsening climate conditions, which adversely impact on food security and access to resources. Rated among the highest growth rates in the world, population growth increases the social pressure amid dwindling resources, puts additional stress on limited available infrastructure in key areas such as healthcare and education. The United Nations recently indicated that worsening violence across Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger disrupts education for more than 400,000 children. This has also rendered 10,500 teachers jobless as they had to flee areas affected by violent extremism. Four, the dismantling of local dispute resolution and governance systems, which hitherto were critical in maintaining social cohesion and sustaining the resilience of these communities to external shock, is of major concern. In many of these areas, the traditional leaders, religious leaders, have had to flee, and yet these were the people who provided the absence of formal judicial systems, informal systems for resolution of conflicts between families, between communities. The surge in inter-community conflict has been largely attributed to the absence of these traditional systems, which has now created an enabling environment for instrumentalization by violent extremists. The threats in the Sahel are transnational in nature and multi-layered in structure. Only a regional, integrated, and holistic strategy will enable us to make progress on any of the specific problems. A reinforced security and law enforcement capacity must go together with more robust public institutions and more accountable government, capable of providing basic development services to the population and of appeasing internal tensions. In a sense, stability will only be achieved if governments move beyond counterterrorism and divert greater share of resources and political attention towards prevention through good governance, political inclusion, respect for human rights, the rule of law, provision of services. Therefore, addressing these issues will require concerted efforts on all levels and proactiveness to what is happening even outside our borders. Because, as they say in Yoruba land, when your neighbor's horse falls into a pit, you should not rejoice at all, for your own child may fall into the same pit. The African Union, ECOWAS, the G7 Sahel, LCBC, as well as other regional and sub-regional mechanisms, will seek to strengthen regional-based approach through transnational application of programs, plans, and interventions to bring about the convergence of the security complexes in the Sahel.